everything. There comes a moment in every life when desire is no longer enough, when wishing stops working, when motivation has to evolve into movement and dreams must be backed by value. Everything. The law of exchange is simple, uncompromising, and universal. You receive in proportion to the value you trade. Not in proportion to what you want, everything, or what you believe you deserve, but in proportion to the value you produce, develop, and contribute. This audiobook is your guide to mastering that law, everything, to transforming effort into impact, potential into performance, and aspiration into achievement, everything. Because when you understand what the world truly rewards, and you learn how to trade value intentionally, success stops being accidental. It becomes inevitable, everything. There's a moment in every journey when everything quietly rearranges itself. A moment when what used to feel complicated suddenly snaps into clarity. Everything. You can almost hear the click, the sound of understanding. And once you hear it, once you see the truth behind how success actually works, nothing looks the same again. Everything. You stop wondering why some people accelerate while others remain stuck. You stop believing in luck as the architect of achievement. Everything. And you stop imagining that success is anything other than a simple, ancient law at work, the law of exchange. Everything you want in life, everything you admire in others, everything. Everything you've ever called success is built on one unbreakable principle: value for reward. Life doesn't negotiate around this law. It doesn't play favorites. Everything. And it doesn't bend because your intentions were good. It moves in direct proportion to the value you bring, develop, or trade. And when you begin to see this, truly see it, everything, the world stops feeling random. It begins to feel predictable, understandable, workable. You've already experienced this law, even if you never named it. Everything. Think back to a moment when you received something meaningful, an opportunity, a compliment, a job, a sale, a breakthrough. If you trace it back far enough, everything, you'll find that it didn't happen because you wished for it, but because you contributed something first. Maybe it was effort. Maybe it was skill. Maybe it was patience, reliability, everything, or courage. But something moved from you before something moved to you. That's the exchange. That's the law. And yet most people are raised to think the world works differently. Everything. They're taught to desire, to hope, to want. They're encouraged to visualize success, to dream bigger, to manifest outcomes. As if the universe runs on wishes. Everything. But wanting something has never been the currency that life accepts. Wanting is free. Wanting is easy. Wanting is everywhere. What's rare is value. Everything. What's rare is the person who shows up with something the world genuinely needs, feels, or benefits from. That's why the law of exchange matters. Everything. Not because it's a rule you should follow, but because it's how reality already works. Everything. Imagine walking into a marketplace with nothing in your hands and expecting to leave with everything. That's what most people unknowingly do with life. Everything. They want rewards without contributions, recognition without mastery, progress without discipline. They ask for the prize before they've prepared the offering. Everything. But the marketplace doesn't work like that, and neither does life. When you understand the marketplace, you move differently. You walk in with purpose, with value, everything, with something real to trade. You stop begging for outcomes and start earning them. Think about the people you admire, the artists whose work moves you, everything. The leaders whose influence inspires you, the entrepreneurs who build empires from ideas, the athletes who electrify stadiums. Strip away the glamour and what remains is a simple truth: everything. They exchanged something valuable long before the world applauded them. They trained when no one was watching. They studied while others slept. Everything. They risked failure while others protected their comfort. They didn't wait for a guarantee before they gave their value. And eventually, the world responded because it had to. Everything. That's the law. The exchange always happens, sometimes instantly, sometimes after a long delay, but always as the result of value. The awakening begins when you stop asking, everything, why don't I have what I want? And start asking, what value have I placed into the world that would naturally attract what I want? This is the shift. This is the click. Everything. Nothing is withheld from you out of cruelty. Life is simply waiting to return to you what you've offered. If you offer little, you receive little. If you offer inconsistently, everything, you receive inconsistently. If you offer value at a high standard and you offer it relentlessly, reward becomes inevitable. It may take time. It may arrive in unexpected forms. Everything. But it comes. Many people resist this idea at first because it feels like pressure. It feels like responsibility. But once you lean into it, it becomes freeing. If life were random, everything, unpredictable, or based on luck, you would be powerless. But if life is based on exchange, you suddenly hold the controls. You can increase your value. You can sharpen your skills. Everything. You can expand your contribution. That means you can expand your reward. Let's bring the law down from the clouds into everyday life. Consider the difference between two coworkers. Everything. One shows up exactly on time, does only what's required, and leaves the moment the clock strikes. The other brings energy, solves problems, offers ideas, everything, and pays attention to details others overlook. Both want a raise. Both want recognition. But their value in the marketplace is not the same. When the reward comes, it won't be a mystery. Everything. It won't be favoritism. It will be exchange. Or take relationships. People who give kindness, honesty, depth, and loyalty become magnets for meaningful connection. Everything. People who give inconsistency, superficial effort, or emotional distance tend to attract confusion and imbalance. It's not magic, it's exchange. Even your health follows this law. Everything. You trade discipline for well-being. You trade movement for mobility. You trade consistent choices for long-term energy. The body responds to what you put into it. Everything. Life is always responding to your input. Sometimes the exchange is immediate. Sometimes it builds slowly like compound interest. Sometimes it appears after years, all at once, everything, like a dam breaking open. But the law is always at work. When people say someone got lucky, they're usually witnessing the moment the exchange finally became visible. Everything. They're seeing the harvest, not the planting. They're seeing the reward, not the value that was traded quietly, privately, relentlessly for years. If you ever feel behind, remember this: everything. Every contribution you make is accumulating. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is ignored. You're placing value into the world, and the world is keeping score more accurately than you think. Everything. The question, then, is not whether the law of exchange is real. It's whether you will use it intentionally or accidentally. Because when you use it intentionally, everything changes. Everything. You start by identifying what value you actually have. Skills, experience, in strength, patience, creativity, discipline, empathy. Every person has value, but most haven't refined it. Everything. They haven't shaped it, strengthened it, or aligned it with a purpose. Raw value is like raw material, promising, but not yet powerful. Then you ask, how can I increase this value? Everything. How can I raise my personal exchange rate? The answer is not complicated, even if it requires effort. You study more, you practice harder, you seek mentors, you upgrade your habits. Everything. You hold yourself to higher standards. You deliver more than expected. You become someone whose presence adds weight to every room you enter. And when you do, rewards begin seeking you out. Everything, not the other way around. One of the most empowering realizations in life is that value multiplies when combined with consistency. A single act of excellence is impressive. Everything. A lifetime of excellence is unstoppable. When you show up consistently, the world begins to trust you. And trust is one of the highest value currencies in the marketplace of life. Everything. People trust those who solve problems. They trust those who do what they say. They trust those who push beyond average. And trust always converts into opportunity. Everything. But here's where the awakening deepens. You start to see that your emotions also respond to exchange. When you invest discipline, you receive confidence. Everything. When you invest honesty with yourself, you receive clarity. When you invest effort, you receive pride. Internal rewards follow the same law as external ones. Everything. Nothing changes inside you until you give something first. You may have seasons where you feel as though you're giving more than you're receiving. Every builder of careers, of dreams, everything of character goes through this. But don't mistake delay for denial. In the early stages, the exchange is growing silently, like a seed breaking through soil. Everything. You won't see results immediately because the value you're creating is still rooting itself. Then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, everything begins to rise at once. Everything. People call it a breakthrough. But you'll know better. You'll know it was the law catching up to everything you placed into the world. When you fully understand the law of exchange, everything, you stop comparing yourself to others because you realize everyone is simply receiving based on what they've traded. You stop resenting others' success, everything, because you see the value behind it. You stop doubting your own potential because you realize you can increase your value at any time, and you stop expecting shortcuts, everything, because shortcuts never create real exchange, and without real exchange, there is no real reward. This is the foundation of everything that follows. Everything. This is the shift that turns passive dreaming into active becoming. When you grasp this, truly grasp it, life stops being something that happens to you. It becomes something you shape, everything, something you influence, something you participate in with intention and power. Because every reward you seek is waiting on the other side of the value you're willing to trade, everything. And every day is another opportunity to offer more, become more, and align yourself with the unbreakable law that has always governed success. Value isn't something you stumble into, everything. It isn't a stroke of luck, and it isn't a gift handed down by life. Value is something you build, piece by piece, decision by decision, everything, moment by moment, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you've become the kind of person the world naturally rewards. And that journey, everything, the quiet and unseen construction of who you are becoming, begins long before anyone pays attention, long before any opportunity appears, long before any reward is offered. Everything, it begins inside you. When you think about people who rise, who stand out, who consistently pull success toward themselves, everything, it's easy to focus on the visible parts of their lives, the achievements, the recognition, the momentum that seems almost effortless, everything. But every visible result is rooted in invisible preparation. Before they could exchange their work for reward, they had to build something worth trading, everything. They had to create value within themselves. Imagine a young designer who wants to start a career. She has passion, ideas, ambition. But passion alone doesn't create value, everything. So she sits down day after day refining her craft. She studies others' work, not to copy, but to understand the principles behind it. She watches tutorials. She practices color theory, everything. She learns the difficult software tools until they no longer intimidate her. No one sees these hours. No one applauds them. But slowly, she becomes someone whose work carries weight, everything. The world begins to respond. Clients start saying yes. People recommend her. Opportunities expand. Her value, once internal and invisible, becomes external and undeniable, everything. And it didn't happen because she wished for it. It happened because she built it. That's the power of value creation. It changes your relationship with the world, everything. It alters the way opportunities treat you. Effort becomes more efficient. Results become more predictable. And suddenly, what felt like a struggle begins to feel like a natural flow, everything. But the flow is earned, every bit of it. At the heart of value creation are 4 pillars: skills, discipline, reliability, and character. These traits determine what you can offer the world, everything, and therefore, what the world is willing to offer you in return. Skills are the obvious starting point, the practical tools that allow you to perform, produce, and contribute, everything. But skills without discipline become inconsistent. Skills without reliability become untrustworthy. Skills without character become empty. Value is holistic, everything. You're not just building abilities. You're building a person. Think about discipline. It's one of the most misunderstood words in personal development, everything. People often imagine discipline as something harsh or restrictive, like a punishment you give yourself. But real discipline isn't punishment, it's alignment, everything. It's the quiet contract you make with your future self, the version of you who will live with the results of your decisions, everything. Discipline is what protects your potential from being wasted by impulses, excuses, and distractions. When you choose discipline, you're not choosing pain, you're choosing investment, everything. You're choosing a higher return than the moment you're in. There's a man who wakes up at 5 each morning to study for exams that could change his entire life. At first, he hates it, everything. His bed is warm, his body is tired, and every sunrise feels like a battle. But slowly, he notices something shifting. His confidence grows, his mind feels sharper, everything. His goals seem more reachable. He hasn't achieved anything yet, not officially. But something inside him is changing, and that change is value. Not the kind you can sell or measure, everything, but the kind that transforms a person into someone capable, someone ready, someone prepared for exchange. Reliability is another form of value, one that is often underestimated, everything. People are drawn to those they can count on. The world rewards trust more than talent, consistency more than brilliance. You don't have to be extraordinary to be valuable, everything. You have to be consistent. Think about a coworker or friend who always follows through. When they say they'll do something, they do it. They show up. They meet deadlines, everything. They honor commitments. Their presence becomes a stabilizing force in the environment. Over time, that reliability turns into influence. People trust them, lean on them, promote them, everything. And again, none of this is accidental. Reliability is practiced. It's a choice. Repeated so many times it becomes part of who you are. And then there's character. Everything, the most foundational value of all. Skills can be taught. Discipline can be trained. Reliability can be developed. Everything. But character is something you shape through the way you handle pressure, responsibility, and opportunity. It's what you choose when no one is watching. Everything. It's how you treat people who can't benefit you. It's how you act when you could take the easy way, but you don't. Everything. Character builds a kind of value that's rare in the world. Not because people don't want it, but because it requires honesty and courage. Everything. Consider a manager who discovers a mistake that could easily be blamed on someone else. Many people would hide it or shift the responsibility. But this manager steps forward. Everything. Admits the error and works to correct it. That moment, though uncomfortable, becomes part of his internal architecture. He becomes someone who faces consequences instead of avoiding them. Everything. Someone whose integrity becomes a form of currency, respected by his team, trusted by his leaders, mirrored by his environment. Character always returns more than it costs. Everything. Value creation is also about self-awareness, the willingness to look at yourself honestly and identify where you need to grow. Everything. It's easy to focus on strengths because they make you feel competent. But growth happens in the areas you'd rather ignore. Maybe you struggle with communication. Everything. Maybe you avoid difficult conversations. Maybe you procrastinate or lack structure or get frustrated easily. These aren't flaws, they're signals. Everything. They point to the exact areas where value can be built. And every improvement in these areas becomes a multiplier, increasing your effectiveness everywhere else. Everything. Imagine someone training in a gym. At first, the exercises feel awkward, the movements feel foreign, the weights feel heavy. But repetition transforms everything. Muscles adapt. Everything. Form improves. Strength grows. What once felt impossible becomes routine. The same thing happens internally. You train your mind, you train your habits, you train your reactions. Everything. And over time, you become stronger in ways that can't be seen but can absolutely be felt. There's also a beautiful truth about value creation. It compounds. Everything. Small habits practiced consistently become powerful advantages. Reading 10 pages a day becomes hundreds of books over a lifetime. Writing a few paragraphs a day becomes an entire portfolio. Everything. Practicing a skill for 30 minutes a day becomes mastery. Every bit of effort, no matter how small, stacks, and the world responds not to the effort itself, but to the accumulated result. Everything. But you must understand one thing. Value creation is personal. No one can do it for you. No one can force you, motivate you, or carry you indefinitely. The world can inspire you, everything, but it cannot build you. That responsibility rests on your shoulders, and it's one of the most empowering truths you'll ever accept. Because if you can build value, everything, you can rebuild direction, you can redesign your life, you can transform your outcomes. Many people wait for opportunity before they develop value. They think everything. Once someone gives me a chance, I'll step up. But the world doesn't work that way. Opportunity doesn't create value. Value attracts opportunity. You rise first. Everything. Then the world rises to meet you. Think of a musician practicing in a small room for years before ever stepping on a stage. Everything. Think of an entrepreneur reading business books long before launching a company. Think of an athlete training in silence before anyone believes in them. Every breakthrough has a long, quiet prelude. Every public reward has a private origin. So the question becomes, who are you becoming when no one is watching? What habits are you building? What skills are you developing? Everything. What values are you reinforcing? What potential are you nurturing daily? Because the person you are becoming determines the rewards you will eventually receive. Everything. And when you finally reach that moment, when opportunity appears, when the exchange is offered, you won't have to scramble, pretend, or play catch up. You'll be ready. Everything. You'll already be valuable. And the world will simply be responding to what you've built from the inside out. Imagine, for a moment, everything. That life is less like a straight road and more like a vast market, alive, busy, constantly shifting. A place where everyone is exchanging something, even if they don't realize it. Everything. Some people trade skills, some trade energy, some trade ideas, some trade consistency, and some, unfortunately, try to trade excuses, hoping they'll buy them success. Everything. But the market doesn't work that way. It never has. It rewards contribution. It responds to value. And the moment you understand this, everything, the moment you stop seeing opportunity as luck and start seeing it as a response, the entire game changes. You don't walk through this market with empty hands. No one does. Everything. You walk with potential, with strengths you may not fully recognize, with experiences you may have overlooked, with a mind capable of learning, adapting, everything, and producing something worth exchanging. The challenge is noticing what you're bringing in and deciding, with intention, how to make it valuable enough that the world turns toward you. Everything. When people say, some people just get opportunities, they're only looking at the surface of the market. They're seeing the moment of transaction, everything, not everything that happened before it. They don't see the years someone spent learning a skill when no one was watching. They don't see the failures someone endured, everything, the small habits they built, the nights they spent trying again while others rested, everything. They don't see the invisible value someone was stacking until it was finally enough to tip the scale and trigger a response. Think about the people you naturally gravitate toward, everything. The coworker who always follows through, the friend who listens without judgment, the business owner who treats customers like they matter, everything. The creator whose work feels thoughtful and consistent. You respond to them because they offer value. And in that same quiet, natural way, everything, the world responds to you based on what you bring forward, not what you hope to bring, not what you promise to bring someday, what you bring today, everything. This truth isn't meant to pressure you, it's meant to liberate you. Because if opportunity is a response, then you are not waiting on luck, you are building leverage, everything. A person who sees life as a marketplace stops asking, why don't things happen for me? And starts asking, everything. What am I offering that the world can actually reward? Think of a young designer sending out applications with a portfolio full of passion projects. No clients yet, everything. No real world experience, just personal work created late at night. They don't know if anyone will value it, but they offer it anyway. And then the email arrives, everything, a small company willing to take a chance. That opportunity isn't luck. It's a response to the value the designer put forward, value they created before anyone asked them to, everything. Or picture someone working at a job that feels invisible. They show up early. They solve problems quietly. They help coworkers without being asked. No applause, no immediate reward, everything. But suddenly, when a position opens, their name surfaces first, not because they were loud, everything, but because they had been trading value all along in a market that was watching more closely than they realized. This is how the world works, not overnight, not instantly, but inevitably, everything. The market of life is not random. It is responsive, it is sensitive to effort, consistency, and the rare quality of someone who seeks to give more than they take, everything. And that responsiveness is your greatest advantage, because while the world may not be fair in every way, it is incredibly fair in this: it will always reward the person who becomes valuable. Everything. Value is not a single thing. It's a combination of traits: reliability, skill, personality, discipline, empathy, creativity, curiosity. It's the energy you bring into a room. Everything. It's the way you solve problems. It's the way you communicate. It's the way you handle pressure, the way you lift others, everything. The way you choose to grow when staying the same would be easier. And the good news is this: value can be built. It can be developed. It can be learned. Everything. You are not locked into the value you had yesterday. Imagine walking through a marketplace with an empty table. Nothing to offer. Nothing to trade. Everything. People pass by because there's nothing there for them. But imagine spending weeks, months, years building your table, adding skills, improving your thinking, practicing your craft, everything. Strengthening your character. Every new piece you add makes your table more compelling, and one day people stop walking past. They stop and look. They engage. They make offers. Everything. They bring opportunity to your table because it finally has something they want. This is the journey you are on right now. Every book you read adds something to the table. Everything. Every habit you build adds something. Every failure you learn from adds something. Every uncomfortable step you take adds something. Everything. You're not just trying to succeed. You're stacking value. You're preparing the world's response. Some people will say, everything. But I've been trying and nothing's happening. And that's exactly how building value feels until it suddenly doesn't. The marketplace doesn't reward your effort instantly. Everything. It rewards your transformation. It rewards the moment your value becomes undeniable. That moment might come later than you hoped, but it will come because value has gravity. Everything. It pulls opportunity toward it. Think about how many times you've admired someone who seems to have limitless chances. The truth behind their luck is simple. Everything. They made themselves valuable in ways that others could not ignore. They built a reputation. They created results. They became someone whose table was worth visiting. Everything. And that is your path too. No one needs to hand you an opportunity for you to begin. You can create value before anyone ever notices. You can learn a skill before anyone asks you to. Everything. You can build discipline before anyone expects it. You can refine your thinking before anyone appreciates it. You can raise your standards quietly, privately, powerfully. Everything. That is the beauty of the market. It starts shifting the moment you start shifting. Opportunity is not a door someone opens for you. Everything. It's a door that unlocks when your value rises high enough. So you keep walking through this metaphorical market, not as a consumer of luck, but as a producer of value. Everything. You become intentional with your growth. You start asking better questions. What can I improve today? What can I learn? What can I contribute? How can I make myself more useful, more skilled? Everything. More dependable, more creative. How can I elevate the standard of what I offer? These questions turn your life into a workshop, shaping you into someone the marketplace can't ignore. Everything. Because in the end, the world is not searching for perfect people. It is searching for valuable people, people who produce, people who grow, people who show up, people who add something real. Everything. And once you decide to become that person, not eventually, but now the world begins to shift in ways that once felt impossible. People suddenly discover you. Everything. Opportunities appear, doors open, but none of it is magic. It's just the market responding to what you've built. You are not waiting on opportunity. Everything. Opportunity is waiting on you. The moment you begin to understand the law of exchange, something shifts inside you. Everything. You stop wondering why some people seem to accelerate while others stay in place. You stop believing that the world operates on luck, favoritism, or mysterious forces that bless a chosen few. Everything. Instead, you begin to see life as a system that responds to value. And the more value you produce, the more reward flows back to you. Everything. But here's the part that most people never learn: value is not fixed. It's not something you're born with, and it's not something that stays at the same level throughout your life. Everything. Value can be multiplied, ground, magnified, redirected. And when you understand how to multiply it, the rewards you receive can expand far beyond what you once believed was possible. Everything. Think about the difference between a single drop of water and a flowing river. A single drop might evaporate before it reaches the ground. A river, though, cuts through mountains. Everything. The same principle applies to value. When you give it inconsistently, randomly, emotionally, it has the force of a drop. But when you give it intentionally, consistently, and strategically, everything, it becomes a river, one that shapes your reputation, your opportunities, and the trajectory of your entire life. That strategy begins with consistency, the first multiplier of value. Everything. Consistency isn't glamorous, and it's rarely the part people want to talk about, but it is the foundation of everything else. Most people try something once or twice or for a week. Everything. And when they don't see results, they assume it doesn't work. They forget that value compounds the same way money does. The first deposit looks small, insignificant even. But over time, everything, the steady deposits build into something undeniable. Think of the athlete who trains daily, even on days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Everything. Think of the writer who puts words on the page every morning, even when inspiration feels absent. Think of the entrepreneur who shows up for their clients with dependability, not mood swings. Everything. Each act might feel small, but together they create a track record, and track records are valuable. People trust what is predictable. They invest in what is reliable. Everything. The world rewards those who keep showing up, but consistency alone is not enough. You can be consistent at the wrong things. Everything. You can give effort that never compounds because it's pointed in a direction that leads nowhere. That's where focus comes in. The second multiplier of value. Everything. Focus is not about doing more, it's about doing the right things with intensity. Everything. It's the difference between scattering your energy across 10 unimportant tasks and investing that same energy in one effort that actually matters. When you focus, everything. You remove noise from your life. You begin to say no, not because you're difficult, but because you're disciplined. Everything. You prioritize actions that actually increase your value in the marketplace of life: skills that make you competitive, habits that make you dependable, mindsets that make you powerful. Everything. Focus reveals what matters. And when you know what matters, you stop wasting your life on what doesn't. Still, even with consistency and focus, everything, there comes a point where effort alone hits a limit. You only have so many hours, so much energy, so much mental bandwidth. That's when leverage enters the picture, the third multiplier, everything. Leverage is the force that allows you to do more with less. It's the reason a single well-placed action can produce results far greater than the effort it took. You can leverage tools, everything, technology, connections, reputation, time, systems, and knowledge. Think of a person who learns a skill once and uses it for the rest of their life, everything. Think of someone who creates a system, a workflow, a checklist, a repeatable process that saves them hours every week, everything. Think of someone who builds relationships that open doors they could never force open alone. Leverage allows you to expand your impact without expanding your exhaustion, everything. It's the difference between working hard and working smart. And once you start recognizing where leverage exists, you begin to see hidden doors everywhere. Doors that were always there, everything, but invisible until you learned how to look. Then comes intelligent effort, the fourth multiplier. Intelligent effort is where everything begins to click. It's not just about trying harder, everything, and it's not about burning yourself out in pursuit of vague results. Intelligent effort is strategic effort. It's the kind of effort that asks, everything, what is the highest value action I can take right now? It's the discipline of tracking your progress, learning from your outcomes, and adjusting your direction, everything. It's the humility to ask for guidance, the curiosity to explore better methods, and the courage to abandon what no longer works, everything. Intelligent effort transforms raw action into refined action, and refined action leads to better results faster, everything. It is the mindset of a professional, someone who takes their growth seriously, who treats their life like a craft, and who refuses to settle for average performance, everything. When you combine consistency, focus, leverage, and intelligent effort, something remarkable happens. Your value doesn't just increase, it accelerates, everything. It begins to compound in ways that surprise even you. People start to notice the difference. Opportunities that once felt out of reach begin to appear within your grasp, everything. You start achieving results that used to feel impossible with a level of ease you've never experienced before. And it's not because you're suddenly more talented or luckier, everything. It's because you've learned how to multiply the value you give, and the world responds to value. It always has, and it always will, everything. Picture a young designer who spends years learning the fundamentals of their craft. They study typography, color theory, composition, the basics that most people skip, everything. They work consistently even on days when nobody is watching. They focus on building a portfolio that solves real problems, not just looks pretty. Then they begin leveraging tools, templates, everything, mentors, and feedback loops. Eventually, they apply intelligent effort, analyzing which projects have the most impact, which clients value their work most, everything, which styles produce the best results. Before long, their work speaks for itself. Their value becomes undeniable. And because their value grows, their rewards grow. Higher paying clients, everything, more opportunities, a stronger reputation. This isn't magic, it's the law of exchange in motion. Or imagine a person trying to transform their health. For years, everything. They've tried quick fixes, trendy diets, or intense workout bursts that last 2 weeks at best. But one day, they decide to follow a different strategy, everything. They choose consistency over intensity. They make small but reliable changes, a daily walk, a simple balanced meal plan, a commitment to better sleep, everything. Then they add focus, choosing the habits that produce the highest impact instead of chasing a dozen conflicting ones. Next, they leverage knowledge, community, tools, and accountability, everything. Finally, they apply intelligent effort by tracking their progress, adjusting their approach, and learning what their body responds to best. Within months, everything. Their transformation feels effortless compared to the struggle they once knew. Not because the process became easier, but because they became smarter in how they approached it. Everything. In every domain, business, relationships, health, personal growth, the same pattern emerges. Those who succeed are not the ones who simply want success or talk about success. Everything. They are the ones who raise the level of value they bring into the world. And they do it through strategy, not chance. They understand that value is not about perfection, everything. It's about progression. It's not about being the best instantly, it's about becoming better consistently. And the more they evolve, the more the world evolves in response to them, everything. As you begin applying this strategy in your own life, you'll feel a shift. You'll notice that your actions feel more purposeful. Your days feel less scattered, everything. Your progress feels more measurable. You'll begin to sense momentum, not the kind that comes from motivation, which fades quickly, but the kind that comes from alignment. Everything. When your effort aligns with your goals, your habits align with your identity, and your strategy aligns with the law of exchange, everything moves with greater power. Everything. You start to trust yourself more. You start to expect more from life, and life in return begins to offer more. You may not see the rewards overnight. Everything. Multipliers take time to show their full force. But every day you act with consistency, every time you sharpen your focus, every habit you optimize with leverage, everything, and every decision guided by intelligent effort, you raise your personal exchange rate. You increase what your time is worth, what your skills are worth, what your presence is worth, everything, what your contribution is worth, and the world pays you accordingly. The most exciting part is this: once you learn how to multiply the value you give, you can apply that ability to anything. Everything. New goals, new dreams, new levels. The strategy doesn't change, only the target does. You become someone who can grow, adapt, and rise at will. Someone capable of shaping their future. Everything, not merely hoping for it. Someone who understands exactly how reward is created and how to claim more of it. And as you continue your journey, everything, you'll begin to see that multiplying your value is not just a strategy for success, it's a strategy for self-respect. Because every time you invest in yourself, discipline yourself, everything, refine yourself and challenge yourself, you prove something, not to the world, but to you. You prove that you are capable of more, that you are worthy of more, that you are becoming more. Everything. And the world, as it always does, will respond. There comes a point in your journey when knowledge is no longer the missing piece. You've learned the principles. Everything. You understand the mechanics. You've seen how the world rewards value, how opportunity gravitates toward contribution, and how every breakthrough begins with what you're willing to give. Everything. But understanding the law of exchange is only the first step. Living in alignment with it, day after day, choice after choice, is where everything changes. Everything. Because the person who wins is not the person who knows the most. It's the person who acts the most in accordance with what they know. To live in alignment with the law of exchange, everything, you begin to look at your life differently. You start seeing every moment as a small transaction with your future. The alarm rings in the morning, and that's an exchange. Everything. Comfort for discipline. You step into a conversation, and that's an exchange. Presence for connection. You sit down to learn something new, and that's an exchange. Everything. Your focus for a stronger mind. Most people never frame their lives this way. They drift, they wish, they wait. Everything. They tell themselves that progress will arrive someday. When circumstances shift, when motivation hits, when the timing is perfect. Everything. But the person who wins sees that every day is full of small trades that add up to one undeniable truth. You get to choose your value, and you get to choose who you become. Everything. Living this way requires honesty, raw, unfiltered honesty. It's uncomfortable at first, because true honesty forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you want to be. Everything. But it's also liberating, because once you confront the truth, you can finally do something about it. Take the example of someone who wants to build a healthier body. Everything. They may talk about goals, diets, workouts, and routines. They may recite all the right information, but the law of exchange doesn't reward intention. It rewards action. Everything. The person who wins doesn't ask, "What do I want?" They ask, "What am I willing to trade for it?" Less comfort, more discipline. Less ease, more effort. And over time, everything. Those small exchanges add up into a stronger body, a clearer mind, and a life that reflects the choices made in the quiet moments. The same applies to relationships. Many people want loyalty, everything, trust, and depth. They want people who understand them, support them, walk beside them. But trust itself is an exchange, something you build through consistency, respect, and honesty. Everything. The person who wins in relationships doesn't just hope for meaningful connections, they invest in them. They show up when it's inconvenient. They listen when it would be easier to talk. Everything. They give patience before demanding understanding. And because of these exchanges, they cultivate bonds that last, relationships that strengthen, and support that multiplies. In work, everything, in business, in career, the law of exchange reveals its clearest form. You can almost feel the equation in motion. A person who constantly grows, improves, adapts, everything, and contributes becomes more valuable. More valuable people attract more opportunities. It's not personal. It's not emotional. It's math. If two people work in the same role, everything, with the same tools in the same environment, but one continuously increases their value, learning new skills, taking initiative, solving problems. The world will reward them differently. Everything. The person who wins doesn't wait for recognition. They create undeniable value so recognition becomes inevitable. Everything. But living in alignment with this law also means embracing delayed gratification. In a world wired for instant returns, instant entertainment, instant distraction, everything. Instant everything. The person who wins plays a longer game. They understand that seeds take time to grow, that mastery requires repetition, and that reward comes after the investment. Everything, not before it. Think of an athlete training in silence while the rest of the world sleeps. Think of an entrepreneur refining their craft for years before the breakthrough. Everything. Think of a creator producing content that barely gets noticed at first, then slowly builds into a brand, then transforms into a legacy. They all operate from the same understanding. Everything. The exchange always comes first. There's a calm power in living this way. Instead of being tossed around by emotion, you become anchored by intention. Instead of reacting to every setback, everything, you begin asking better questions. What is this challenge trying to teach me? What value must I create to overcome it? What version of myself would turn this obstacle into opportunity? Everything. The moment you start asking questions like these, your life shifts. You stop seeing problems as punishments and start seeing them as exchanges, your growth in return for your struggle. Everything. Of course, living in alignment with the law of exchange doesn't mean overworking or sacrificing your well-being. It means trading wisely. Everything. It means making exchanges that create long-term returns, not short-term depletion. It means understanding that rest is also value. Reflection is value. Recharging is value. Everything. A depleted person cannot trade value because they have none left to give. The person who wins respects balance, not as a luxury but as part of the system. They rest with purpose. Everything. Not avoidance. They sharpen the blade so it can cut more cleanly. What truly separates the person who wins is their ability to act without waiting for permission. Everything. They don't wait for the perfect conditions. They don't wait for validation. They don't wait for motivation to strike like lightning. They understand that action creates motivation. Everything. Not the other way around. They show up because showing up is the exchange required to build momentum. And once momentum begins, everything else becomes easier. Small actions compound. Everything. Small wins build confidence. And confidence transforms effort from something you force into something you embody. Everything. But perhaps the most powerful element of living in alignment with the law of exchange is identity. Everything. The person who wins doesn't merely do the right things. They become the kind of person who naturally makes the right exchanges. They shift from forcing discipline to embodying discipline. Everything. They shift from wanting growth to expecting it. They shift from hoping for reward to understanding they have earned it. Identity shapes behavior, behavior shapes results. Everything. And results reinforce identity. This cycle becomes unstoppable once it starts. Consider someone who decides to become a leader, not by title but by behavior. At first, everything. They have to consciously act like one, communicating clearly, taking responsibility, setting an example. But as they continue making these exchanges, giving up blame to gain ownership, everything, giving up ego to gain influence, giving up comfort to gain respect, they eventually transform. They don't just lead, they are a leader, and the world responds accordingly. Everything. This identity-driven approach is what turns the law of exchange into a lifestyle. It flows into every decision, every intention, every moment. You start asking yourself, everything. What value am I trading right now? What does my future gain or lose from this choice? What would the person I'm becoming do next? Everything. These questions guide you more effectively than motivation ever could. They become your compass. The person who wins understands that excellence is a habit, not an event. Everything. They recognize that small exchanges, repeated consistently, build extraordinary outcomes. Waking up 15 minutes earlier, reading 10 pages a day, practicing a skill for 20 minutes. Everything. Reaching out to someone instead of isolating, saying no to distractions a little more often. These acts seem insignificant in isolation, but in the marketplace of life, everything. They compound into something remarkable. And then there's courage, the exchange that separates dreamers from achievers. Everything. Living in alignment with the law of exchange requires stepping into uncertainty. It requires trading the familiar for the possible, comfort for growth, fear for action. Everything. The person who wins doesn't eliminate fear, they move forward with it. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear, everything, but the willingness to trade short-term discomfort for long-term expansion. Life becomes simpler when you live this way, not easier, but clearer. You begin to see the patterns. Everything, you begin to see the returns. You begin to see yourself transforming through the small, steady exchanges you make every day. And with every exchange, everything, you draw closer to the life you want and further from the version of yourself that settled for less. Because in the end, everything. The person who wins is not the one with the greatest talent or luck or advantages. It's the one who aligns their daily actions with the universal truth that governs all success. Everything, value creates reward. And the moment you choose to live in harmony with that truth consistently, intentionally, courageously, you become unstoppable.